Hey everybody, what's happening? It is August 9th and you are in the Morning Devo with Bo O. Bo Willette's my name. You could always check out the archives of the YouTube channel at YouTube and just type in Bo Willette and you'll get to all the archives and we'll be ready to go. And you can go through books of the Bible with me, which is awesome. And hey, I'm almost on time today. It's 9:13. So yesterday I got a little slack that I was running a little early, a little late, anyway, it's good to be back at that 9 o'clock frame. Of time. So we're going to be in Job 24 today. And this is kind of Job continuing on his kind of talk, if you will, or his rant. You could even say it that way. And really it's in response to his buddy Eli, who's kind of come at him for the third time. And so Job's had some things to say to Eli. And I guess it's kind of, this book kind of is like it's like a big hangout sesh, it feels like, right, with your buddies. And it's a constant back and forth, but it's of the most serious kind, right, of the hangout sessions. A lot of grief and a lot of interesting things that are said. I love the book because it makes me kind of think that like a lot of times we think we're right, but we're wrong. And I kind of don't mind thinking that way. I know for some people that's really difficult. They kind of go, man, I don't like that. I don't like thinking I'm wrong. But, that's why you need saving in the first place. When you came to Jesus, you were admitting wrong. And so it should be kind of normal to us Christians to be able to say, hey, I think I'm wrong. Or I could possibly be wrong with this. I think out of all the people and all the theology of the world, right, the different thoughts and teachings on God, the Christianity definitely holds this idea that humans are messed up. And so it shouldn't be weird to think that, you got something wrong, and maybe that you might think you're doing the right thing, or you might think you're in the right, but really you're not in the right. And we see that certainly in this book with Job's buddies. So let's get into 24, see what it says, And thanks always for joining me on the Devo. Let me see who's in the comment corner. We got Paula in the house. Casey's in the house already, so praise God for that. And welcome all the other people that are joining me on the other platform as well. So here we go. Let me turn down the music, make sure that's not bothering us, and let's read 24. So, okay. Why doesn't the Almighty bring the wicked to judgment? Good question, right? Very Psalm 73 like. Why does the wicked just continue to go on? Why must the godly wait for him in vain? Evil people steal land by moving the boundary markers. They steal livestock and put them in their own pastures. They take the orphan's donkey and demand the widow's ox as security for a loan. The poor are pushed off the path. The needy must hide together for safety. Like wild donkeys in the wilderness, the poor must spend all their time looking for food, searching even in the desert for food for their children. They harvest a field they do not own, and they glean in the vineyards of the wicked. Wow. This is, again, one of those insights that Job gives us into our modern world. Man, we just thank God for the scriptures because, boy, they really are different from what I always thought they were going to be. I mean, I thought the Bible definitely was going to be some fairy tale book. I mean, definitely, different things that were kind of, it was all going to be this unworldly kind of thing. But this is so downright awesome. I mean, this is so like what we see in our world. The power structures rule. The people are just little people. It takes us years to own a home. We can't even buy a house. And today, who can buy a home, right? It's so sad. How many young people can't even afford a home? Right? The poor work for the rich. The rich are just doing what they want to do like they've always done in the world, right? Rich people tend to do whatever they want to do. And this is how it's always been, right? Rich people can do massive things, crazy things that me and you if we did them, it would be a mind blower. We'd be in jail for sure. But rich can do it and get away with it. Isn't that unbelievable? Yeah, it seems that way, right? They can own everything. They can buy everything up. They can exploit you and your weaknesses, use you for their benefit. They can pay you not a lot of wage so that you're constantly in need of them. Make it so you're dependent on them. I mean, just constant exploitation. The whole system of the world is this way, by the way. It's unbelievable, right? A guy Marxism comes on the scene, Karl Marx, and he thinks, I got a good idea. We'll all be, on the same page. Well, no, that didn't work. We know that can't happen. People will always exploit. That's how human beings are. We can't not get it away from it. We're stuck. And Job sees it. Where's the justice of the world? Hey, do you want God's justice? Do you want God's justice now? What would God's justice look like in your life? What if God were to act in his righteousness against you? What would that look like? Why doesn't the Almighty do something? Why doesn't he bring judgment to the wicked? Such a cry, right? But I love this. The lands are stolen, land boundaries get moved. Hasn't this hasn't this happened in the world? Why are the land masses the way they are? Why are our continents divided in certain areas, places divided in certain areas? Why is the map the way it is? Boundaries get pushed. Boundaries get marked off by power structures. The landmass, the boundaries don't make any sense, but they make sense to the wealthy. To those in power, they make sense. And he goes over all this. I just find it fascinating. I find it fascinating, too, because, as a secular progressive growing up in SoCal, I mean, this is how I was raised, like thinking about the injustices of the world. That's what I always heard my dad talking about. The different injustices that go on in the world by the power structures, the hegemonical power structures, this kind of thing. And it's funny, today you have a progressive movement that thinks if they get in power that they'll make everything good, but they don't realize something that's very important, and that is their hearts themselves are wicked. And that's what they don't believe. They believe that they're going to do the right thing, and they don't realize that they're going to do the wrong thing, and that they need a checks and balances, or else they too are going to go off the deep end into totalitarianism. Because this is how we do it. It's sad, but we all continue to pound the nails of Jesus, don't we? We just continue to pound those nails in, right? We don't even see it. We can't even see that we're just pounding and pounding those nails, meaning we keep doing the same thing over and over. We're the same group of people that would crucify Christ. And that's bums me out, but it also pushes me to the need of a Savior. This is where Jesus is so beautiful, man, so beautiful. Thank you so much. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son. Wow. So Job's going over the injustices of the world. And you might be doing that this morning. You might be watching the news or having your coffee and getting your wonderful devotion of news, which I'm not going to comment on that. But anyway, but you might sense all the injustice of the world, just like Job, right? And sometimes when we're grieving like Job, when we're sad, when we have loss in our life, we can really ask these questions to God. Where is your justice, God? When are you going to make things right? Verse 9 says, the wicked snatch a widow's child from her breast. They traffic kids. They steal kids. They use children. They use them for work, child labor, anything to make money. Right? People will do anything to make money. Taking the baby as security for a loan. See that? Bribery. The poor must go about naked without any clothing. They harvest food for others while they themselves are starving. They work in those fields all for the wealthy. They work in that factory all for the wealthy, but yet they themselves aren't getting paid a proper wage. Is it right that a home is worth so much that someone has to go not only to high school, they have to go not only to college, a 4-year college, but they have to probably go and get a master's. You have to have, a bachelor's in certain fields or a master's in other fields, or go become a doctor in order to buy a home. Is that right? What does that benefit? Who does that benefit? Well, it benefits the education system, that's for sure, right? Hey, you have to, in order to afford a home, you have to go to our school. Isn't that great? Yeah, it makes it impossible. People need to continue on in these institutions in order to be able to survive, in order to be able to live kind of the American dream, have a place. Even rent a place can be so expensive. Is it right to charge so much for a hospital scan on your body to where you have to sell a car to be able to pay for that scan? Does that equal up? Selling your vehicle so you can get to work because you need $6,000 to be able to pay for a 20-minute scan of your body because you were in the hospital for a day and they did that scan on you. Does that sound right? No. It's all exploitive. It's all wrong. It's sad. The poor must go about naked, right? They harvest the food for the wealthy, right? They suffer the consequences for the wealthy. They press out olive oil without being allowed to taste it. It's sad. You can work in a place where there's food being served, and and for lunch they'll give you one thing. You can have one thing. What? I worked 9 hours. Can I have 2 burgers? No, you can only have one. Wow. You can harvest the food, but you can't taste it, right? It says they tread in the wine press as they suffer from thirst. Oh yeah, you can work. You can work in making the drink, but you certainly can't partake of it. What kind of boss am I? What kind of leader am I? What kind of company am I? Am I doing things right? Or is the bottom line just the bottom line? Is the bottom line just the money? Jesus said you can't serve God and what? Mammon. Oh, man. That's a cutting statement. I got to deal with my heart with money. And maybe today will be a day, just doing the Devo, that I could think about, my relationship with money. And what's that like? And how much of that really guides my heart? It says, the groans of the dying rise from the city, and the wounded cry for help, yet God ignores their moaning. So Job says it looks like God just ignores all this stuff that goes on. It's very Ecclesiastes-like in that way. We just got done that book. But, where is the Lord, in all this? Wicked people rebel against the light. They refuse to acknowledge its ways or stays in its paths. Haven't you ever rebelled against the light? It's a good statement. And some people refuse to acknowledge its ways or stay in its path. We don't even want to acknowledge the ways of God. Let's forget about him completely. Let's totally go our own way. And it says, the murderer rises in the early dawn to kill the poor and needy at night. At night he is a thief. The adulterer waits for the twilight, saying, no one will see me then. He hides his face so no one will know him. We all, are very particular and intentional about, our sin. And I that's something to think through, Thieves break into houses at night and sleep in the daytime. They are not acquainted with the light. So kind of using that analogy that's even in the New Testament, in the book of Thessalonians, the idea of, light being, we are not of those of darkness, right? But we are those of the day, Paul says in the book of Thessalonians, meaning we're of the light. We're not to live in a way where we're hiding things, having those secret particular things that we're doing, but to bring those things into the light. Hey, you struggle with something? We all do. Best thing to do is share it. That's the thing. I don't know anybody who doesn't have some kind of, secret thing that they struggle with in their heart. It could be tremendous anxiety or fear or depression or incredible stress that they just carry around all the time, very secret about it. It could be lustful inclinations. It could be greed and envy and jealousies and, resentments and all these things you hide in. But it's best if we get those things out, right? And it says, the black night is in their mourning. They ally themselves with the terrors of the darkness. Wow. they kind of hang out, they tie themselves to, they partner with, right? Hey, what am I partnering with in my life? That's kind of a good idea too, huh? What am I partnering with? But they will disappear like the foam down a river. Everything they own is cursed. Oh, they'll be judged. So he kind of comes around now, Job does, says, where's God? And he says, they're going to judge. He's going to judge them. And they are afraid to enter their own vineyards. Okay, so the grave consumes sinners just as drought and heat consumes snow. That's true. Their own mothers will forget them. Maggots will find them sweet to eat. No one will remember them. Wicked people are broken like a tree in the storm. They cheat the woman who has no son to help her. It says they refuse to help the needy widow. God is, it's kind of interesting, right? The book of James says, what is true religion, right? To help widows, those in need, and here, Job kind of stresses that idea of like, hey, these people don't even help those that are down and out, that don't even have anybody, right? And it's kind of interesting, but in the New Testament, in the book of Timothy too, Paul mentions that the church should help people that are elderly widows that don't have anybody else to help them. That's how the church benevolence should be run, is elderly widows. God in his power drags away the rich. They may rise high, but they have no assurance of life. Wow. No assurance. God, do I have assurance of life? Assurance of salvation? What is your assurance today? How do you know you're going to be saved? What is it based on? Man, he's talking about the wicked, those who have refused God, who have partnered with the things and don't want the truths of God. He says they have no assurance, right? None. And it says, they may be allowed to live in security, but God is always watching them. And though they are great now, in a moment they will be gone like all others, cut off like heads of grain. Can anyone claim otherwise? Who can prove me wrong? Hey, you guys disagree with this? Who can prove me wrong? It looks like God's being unjust, but he's not. It's just a matter of time before God's justice comes on the scene, right? Seems like everything Job says is pretty cool, right? It's kind of a cry of the injustice of the world, seeing, what we see all the time, the power structures ruling, the oligarchies ruling, right? The plutocracies going off, doing their thing, right? And then all the peasants just going into work and working for the system and just keeping it going, and everybody keeping it going and keeping it going, and this kind of thing. But yet it always seems like we just keep falling behind, like everything falls behind. It's very difficult to move forward. And if we do move forward, we're just, again, feeding the giant, that's all we're doing, really. And so he sees that injustice, but then he sees that God is going to judge ultimately. And that's always good for us to remember. It sounds good. Let's see what's going to be. Let's see, Bildad's next on the list. Let's see what he says. So we'll do a couple chapters tomorrow, and we'll see what the response is to Job. So we're getting close. We have 25. We don't have much further to go. And then God's going to drop the bomb. We're going to see what God has to say about all this. So anyway, you guys have a great day, okay? Thanks for joining me. That was chapter 24. A cool chapter again. One of those ones where you could pick up maybe a book, like a Cornell West book or something, and you kind of go through this chapter and you kind of go, oh, you see the injustices of the world kind of thing. So, hey, let's direct our hearts to God and remember that he will judge, and we can trust that. Okay? Take care. Bye-bye.